in the first 50 to 75 years of American history, our music was much more like European music, and American music wasn't really recognized as its own thing. Then during the Civil War period, with the advent of the great songwriters like Stephen Foster and Daniel Decatur Emmett and others, our music really took on its own character. So it has roots in Scottish and Irish music, but also a lot of African influence and influence from other cultures that have mixed together here in America.
I'm not sure that the music itself was directly influenced so much by history. I think it kind of was a sneaky way that the history fit into the music. What do you think about that?
Well, I think our interest in history affects our music. In other words, we're interested in American history, and we're curious about the music of different periods and how it fit into daily life. For instance, in our concerts where we focus on music of the Civil War period, some of the music relates to the war and the politics, but a lot of it also has to do with the social lives of people, how they sang together, what they heard at a dance, and other aspects of people's lives.
I think that playing for square dancing is one thing that sort of sent us in that direction because square dances are a thing that have been going on for 200-300 years, maybe even longer, and in very much the same way as they always have. Except, of course, now we have sound systems when we play square dances, and 100 years
Yeah.
ago they didn't. But that I think was one aspect of our music that really led us to look into the past and feel connected with people who lived 150 years ago. I think it's a connection with the past, a way to connect with people who are alive 150, 160, 170 years ago. Um, and understand that they were the same people that we are. They have the same feelings that we have. Their good times are similar to our good times, and their hard times are sometimes very similar as well.
And
So it's a great connection.
yeah, and today we have, our nation is connected, uh, is involved in wars around the world. And there are people who have their children and their relatives uh, in conflicts. And some of the same emotions are, exactly expressed in the songs of the Civil War. I wrote Ashok in Farewell back in 1982, and I wrote it in connection with a place called Ashokan in the Catskills, here where we live, a music camp that we still run. This would be our 32nd year, I believe, of running this. So that was the end of the third year, and it expressed my feelings of loss and longing, in a sense, of being away from the camp after a wonderful summer of connection with friends and connection with music and being in a beautiful woodland setting. So I didn't really think about the Civil War at all at that point in time, and the tune had very personal connection for me. Eventually we recorded it with our band Fiddle Fever, and that record came out in 1984. And at that point, two of our band members, Russ Barenberg and Matt Glazer, were working with Ken Burns on a film called The Brooklyn Bridge. He made several films before the Civil War that were on public television, but not as well known, perhaps, as the Civil War. So at that point, they gave him a copy of the record, and he heard that tune, and it called me up almost immediately. He was so moved by the tune. And we started talking about working on some of his films, and Molly and I and other members of our band worked on Thomas Hart Benton, The Congress, Empire of the Air, other Ken Burns films. Then eventually, in 1990, the Civil War came out in September. So this marks the 20th anniversary, 2010 does, of that film coming out. And Ken thought to use Ashok in Farewell as a primary theme through the film. And at first I thought, I don't get it. I didn't understand why it would fit. But when we saw that tune together with some of the visual images, uh, it was remarkable how well it fit and how it connected. We will be doing some music from the Civil War era,
Yes.
and one of the must-do parts of our repertoire is a medley called Hits of the 60s, 1860s, of course. That's
Right.
5 of the most powerful melodies from the Civil War era, and I hope Molly will be singing the Stephen Foster song, Hard Times Come Again No More.
I think that the time is very appropriate for that song again. We'll definitely do that. And we might do one called Faded Coat of Blue, which was a song that was very popular around 1840 or so.
And definitely some hot fiddle tunes with double fiddles and banjo and guitar, and good foot stomping music, and some very sweet and tender waltzes, again with multiple instrumentation.